Hi guys, welcome! In this video, we'll check out the new Slayer collab class in RO 2.0. Although it has many similarities with Arcane Master, there are still several differences that would make a Slayer a stronger class. We'll discuss in detail the recommended stats, skills, runes, equipment cards, and tips that will guide you in increasing the damage output of your Slayer character, especially when farming, boss hunting, and clearing instances. Hopefully this video can help bring the highest potential of your Slayer character. Alright, without further ado, let's begin. Slayers is a limited edition job class which you can only get from the Slayers crossover event, which will run from 5 AM of March 21 for global and March 23 for C server. To change into Slayer, you first need to get a Demon Whisperer job transfer item, Fragments of the Language of Chaos, by spending 300 BCC in the Slayer Gacha machine. Upon use, you'll receive a quest to transfer into the Demon Whisperer Tier 2 job. After reaching job level 70, you can change into the Chaotic Archmage Tier 3 job. And then upon reaching job level 60, you can transfer into the Slayer Tier 4 job. Similar to Arcane Masters, Slayers specialize in dealing AoE elemental magic damage as well as single target burst magic damage. But there are a few noteworthy differences that make Slayers more OP than Arcane Masters. First is that they have a passive skill that increases their MP and ignore MDef by 1% for every 1000 points of base magic attack. Second, although their skills are not of dual element, they can still choose to combine two magic spells and release them at the same time using the compound magic skill. Slayers may even combine Chain Lightning and Chacha Vortex, which can be OP in Guild Wars. Third, they have the ability to teleport to another location within 8 meters using the Befiso Bring skill. This will come in handy when engaging and escaping. Fourth, they can ignore the enemy's anti-fatal effect by using the Giga Slave skill, which will have no cooldown when the enemy dies from the skill. However, if the enemy doesn't die, you will die instead. Fifth and last is that Slayers have an anti-fatal skill that lasts for 8 seconds and can increase their MP by 30%. However, at the end of the effect, the Slayer will be stunned for 5 seconds. The stun effect can be ignored when you eat anti-crowd control food or by using an Orc Hero card. These features will truly make Slayers stronger than Arcane Masters in both PvE and PvP. Up next, let's discuss the recommended stats for Slayers. Prioritize putting points on Int as it is a stat that directly increases your magic attack. Hence, Int will be the foundation for increasing your overall DPS. Second, we have Dex, which reduces the variable cast time or VCT of skills. Every 30 Dex reduces VCT by 1 second. However, there are many other sources of Dex and VCT reduction, and thus it's better to equip first all your runes and gears that provide VCT reduction, and then just adjust your Dex afterwards by checking if you already have reduced the VCT of Drag Slave by 15 seconds. And third, allot points on Vit, which is essential for survivability, especially when fighting against stronger boss monsters. If you have remaining attribute points, you may allot it on any stat of your choice. Aside from increasing Int, Dex, magic attack, and variable cast time reduction, you should also prioritize increasing the following attributes. First is Ignore MDef, which allows you to deal more damage to enemies with high MDef stat. You should aim for 160% Ignore MDef when fighting newer boss monsters to bring your MDef to 0, since they have additional 60% MDef stat apart from their base MDef stat. In Thanatos Tower, boss monsters have additional 100% MDef, so it's ideal to have 200% Ignore MDef to reduce your MDef to 0. Next is Magic Penetration, which lowers the enemy's magic damage reduction stat. There is no cap to MP, so it's possible to decrease the enemy's damage reduction to a negative value. And last is Skill Damage, which increases your final damage output. Other stats that affect your magic damage are Elemental Attack, Racial Damage Modifiers, and MVP Damage Modifiers. Size and Elemental Damage Modifiers do not affect magic damage. It's also equally important to reduce your fixed cast time, skill cooldown, and cast delay to spam skills faster, but without sacrificing your damage increasing stats. Up next, let's discuss the most important skills for this build. For the Demon Whisperer second job, you should prioritize the following skills. First is level 10 Drag Slave, which is equivalent to Arcane Master's Comet Crash. This is the primary farming skill of Demon Whisperer as it deals huge AoE fire magic damage. There's an AC rune that will summon fire pillars randomly upon casting Drag Slave, which will increase your DPS during long fights. Do take note that Drag Slave has a 15-second variable cast time, so pay attention to your dex and VCT reduction stat. An alternative to Drag Slave is to farm using a low-level Storm Gust, preferably set to level 1 only as it has the lowest cast time. However, the efficiency of farming with Storm Gust largely depends on the stats on your Endless Snowstorm Class A rune. A high value for the first line is required to remove up to 2 seconds of fixed cast time and thus be able to insta-cast Storm Gust. A high value for the second line is also essential as skill delay reduction allows you to cast Storm Gust more often. There are also other AC runes that can increase its damage and shorten its cast delay. Another advantage for level 1 Storm Gust is that it has higher freeze chance which you may use to control mobs in Oracle. Next, get level 1 Protagonist Halo to boost your job EXP gain by 50%, which is very important for leveling your Demon Whisperer to Slayer. But once you've reached Slayer job level 80, you can forgo the skill and just put the point on another skill instead. Next, get level 20 Amplify Magic Power and level 10 Energy Coat, which are active buffs that boost your magic damage. After that, get level 10 Increase Spiritual Recovery and level 10 Soul Drain to increase your max SP and SB regen. And lastly, get level 1 Light Ball, which you can use to reveal hiding enemies. As for your remaining skill points, you may allot it in any skill you like. Once you've transferred to the Chaotic Archmage 3rd job, the most important skills to get are as follows. First is level 10 Dig Vault, which is a Slayer's version of Chain Lightning. Due to its ability to bounce to nearby enemies, it's still the most efficient farming skill for Slayers. Second is level 10 Ragna Blade, which is equivalent to Tetra Vortex but doesn't require orbs to cast. This can be used in bursting down low-level MVPs and MVPs in Endless Tower. Then max out Recognize Spell to level 10, which boosts your M-Pen by 20%. Next, get level 10 Dark Magic Proficiency and the multi-effect AC runes to increase both your M-Pen and ignore M-Def by 1% for every 1000 points of base magic attack. Among the T3 skills, this is the only one that is unique for the Slayer class. After that, get level 5 White Imprison as prerequisite for level 5 White Barrier, which is very useful for survivability. Then allot 5 points on a light, which can increase the DPS of your fire skills. And lastly, get level 5 Flow Break, which is a Slayer's version of Stasis. This can block MVP's magic type skills and auto attacks for 15 seconds. As for the remaining 20 points, you can only allot it on Force Focus, which increases your max HP by up to 10,000. Once you've changed into the Slayer 4th job, you'll find that all the skills are essential. So if you have limited amount of time quicksand, you can follow this priority list of skills. First, get the usual Arcane Master buffs such as Flame Rout and Flame Guardian, which will increase the offensive and defensive power of your fire pillars. Unlimited to have 25% chance to skip the cooldown and cast delay when releasing an offensive skill. An Element Balance to increase all of your elemental damage based on the element that has the highest damage percent. Next, get Befiso Bring, which allows you to teleport to a chosen location within 8 meters. After that, allot your time quicksand on Slayer's AoE offensive skills. First is Jellyfish Summon, which is the water element equivalent of Arcane Master's Quicksand Vortex. However, its enhancement skill and water asphyxia are only useful in PvP. Next is Dim Wind, which is the equivalent of Sandstorm but is of wind element only. It can be casted on top of Earth Field. And last is Dyna's Brass, which is equivalent to Lightning Meteor. It has 80% chance of triggering Dig Vault upon casting due to this enhancement skill. Next, get Compound Magic to combine 2 magic spells and release them at the same time. There are 5 types of Compound Magic skills you can use. First is Dim Wind plus Jellyfish Summon, which causes wind and water magic damage equivalent to 80% of Dim Wind's and 80% of Jellyfish Summon's damage per second. Second is Dyna's Brass plus Drag Slave, which causes wind and fire magic damage over a large area, which will then deal 20% continuous damage over the next 5 seconds. It can also trigger the Fire Pillar attack and Dig Vault combo effects. Third is Ragnarok plus Dig Vault, which is a single target Tetravortex that can bounce to up to 6 nearby enemies. The damage for each bounce will be reduced by 10% if you have max level Dig Vault. Fourth is Demonic Crystal plus Flow Break, which deals water magic damage equivalent to 120% of the damage of Demonic Crystal and has a 100% chance of freezing enemies. Unlike Frost Misty, it doesn't convert the armor of the MVP directly to water, so it will not be that useful in Thanatos Tower. Fifth and last is Bephisto Bring plus White Barrier, which can teleport you to a chosen location within 8 meters and auto-cast White Barrier for yourself. Do take note that both skills must be learned first to use the corresponding compound magic, and that the selected skill can't be replaced during its cooldown. Among these 5 compound magic skills, I prefer using Dyna's Brass plus Drag Slave, which is like a combination of Lightning Meteor and Comet Crash. Next, you may get the power of Lord of Nightmare, which is the 8-second anti-fatal skill that also increases your M-Pen by 30%. However, at the end of the effect, you'll be stunned for 5 seconds. The stun effect can be ignored when you eat anti-crowd control food or equip an Orc Hero card in your headwear. Lastly, we have Giga Slave, which is a single target burst skill that locks a target and then deals massive true damage after a 5-second channeling time. Your target needs to die for its cooldown to refresh, or otherwise your Slayer will die instead. This is very useful in PvP since it ignores the enemy's death immunity effect. Now that we understand the skills of Slayers, let's discuss next the general skill setup. When fighting boss monsters, you first need to make sure that all essential buffs are in Prepare for Elite, such as Energy Coat, Amplify Magic Power, Recognize Spell, Flame Route, and the rune skill Invisible Space. Then manually cast Prepare for Elite. Element Balance should be manually casted after Prepare for Elite so that the effect of Amplify Magic Power will be applied on the balancing of elemental damage. After that, go beside the boss monster so that they'll be hit with your Fire Pillar and then start auto battle with a skill rotation of Dyna's Brass, Jellyfish Summon, Dim Wind, and Compound Magic since they all have short cast delay. For survivability, make sure to manually cast White Barrier, Bephisto Bring, and Flow Break when necessary. Make sure to observe your buffs carefully and manually recast them when needed. When it comes to auto farming, just put in the following skills in the auto skill slot. When starting out as a Demon Whisperer, the most efficient skill for farming is a low-level Storm Gust. However, it has low magic attack multiplier, so you need to make sure that it can still one-hit kill the monsters you're farming. Just choose mobs which are weak against water element. Another option is to use Drag Slave, which has higher damage but longer cast time and cast delay. Once you've reached Tier 3 job, the most efficient skill to use for farming is Dig Vault, as it can bounce to up to 6 nearby enemy monsters. To make farming more efficient, you may use a Dark Illusion card in your headgear to reduce its fixed cast time from 0.4 to 0.15 seconds. Lastly, if you can't one-hit kill the monsters you're farming, you may also place self-buffs in your auto skill slot. Up next, let's discuss the most important runes to get. For Acer Monument, these are the runes that can help increase your overall damage output. If you have remaining gold medals and contribution, just activate the runes that improve your auxiliary skills. For advanced runes, you may prioritize the following skill runes. First is the Flare Protection Class S Star rune for higher Fire Pillar damage and increased protection from damage received. Activating the third line is vital as Flame Guardian will also be able to absorb physical damage received. Second is a Quick Scent Confinement Class S star rune for a higher jellyfish summon damage. Third is a Cretaceous Barrier Class S rune with the third line activated to remove the cast time of skills, especially Giga Slave and Dig Vault. A high value for the first line is also good for reduced movement speed penalty. And fourth is a Thunder Lightning Class S rune which can help you one-hit kill the monsters you're farming using Dig Vault. It will also help increase the damage output of Dyna's Brass when Dig Vault is triggered. As for the other skill runes, you may choose depending on personal preference. As mentioned earlier, if you're going to farm using low-level Storm Gust, then you'll need a good Endless Snowstorm Class A rune. The additional def provided by the Energy Protection Class B rune may also help in survivability. If you want to one-hit kill MVPs in Endless Tower, then you can improve the damage of Ragna Blade using the Soul Vortex Class S rune with high first line value. As for the attribute runes, prioritize upgrading the following to increase your magic damage. Up next, let's dive into the suggested equipment set and cards. For weapon, Slayers have a new exclusive weapon called Curse Gauntlets. It is a good starting weapon as it gives a good amount of int, magic attack, and skill damage. You need to refine it to plus 10 to get higher Ignore MDef and magic damage. After that, you can synthesize it to Hand of Chaos for a huge boost in overall damage. What's great about this weapon is that it provides high damage modifiers for both AoE and single target skills. However, for endgame, the weapon that will provide the highest increase in DPS would be a plus 15 unlimited since it grants a plus 60% increase in AoE magic skill damage. The only drawback is that it doesn't grant Ignore MDef and magic attack percentage stats, so it will not be useful in increasing the damage of non-AoE skills such as Ragna Blade, Dig Vault, and Fire Pillar. You should only switch to Unlimited if you already have a high magic attack investment in your adventure handbook and 160% or above Ignore MDef. But if you want a balance between using AoE and single target skills, then a plus 15 Hand of Chaos will be better. For weapon enchantment, aim for a high int or magic attack stat and magic for 4th enchant. For weapon cards, it's cheaper and more efficient to use any race or MVP damage modifier cards and just switch depending on the monster you're fighting. But if you don't want to switch cards and have a high budget, then you may use the following cards. For offhand, just use a Creeper Agreement for a ludicrous amount of Ignore MDef. But if you already have more than 160% Ignore MDef even without Creeper Agreement, then I think Peak Platter would be a better alternative as it gives more MP, magic attack percentage, and int. A plus 15 Peak Platter also reduces fixed cast time by 10%, which is quite useful when White Barrier is on cooldown. For offhand enchantment, aim for high int or magic attack stat and insight for 4th enchant. For offhand cards, Gemini's Love is a good starter card, while Alistar card is currently the best in slot. For armor, the only option is Star Shatter's Gown, which is a synthesized form of Robe of Cast. This is the core armor for magic class because it grants a lot of magic damage modifiers. For armor enchantment, aim for high int or magic attack stat and magic for 4th enchant. For armor cards, you may use either an Agav card if you have low magic attack or a Munak Star card if you have low Ignore MDef. But if you have already high magic attack and Ignore MDef, it's better to use Heart card against low-level MVPs, which you can kill quickly, or Nightmare Star card against high-level MVPs, and in instances where survivability is more important. It allows you to cast White Barrier more frequently and thus grants longer invisibility time. For garment, you may use any cheap garment that has Arcane 3 or 4 enchant for magic damage increase. But the current best in slot is a high refined Divine Feathers clothes which has Arcane 4th enchant. This increases int, variable cast time reduction, Ignore MDef, magic attack percentage, and skill damage percentage. For garment cards, you can use any of the following cards. For footgear, you may just use any cheap footgear that has Arcane 3 or 4 enchant. but the best in slot would be a high refined white gem boots which has Arcane 4th enchant. A more versatile alternative, especially if you also use other physical job classes, is a high refined St. Mary's cloth shoes, since the magic attack percentage it gives is just 2% lower than that of white gem boots. For footgear cards, you can use any of the following cards. For accessory, there are various options that increase magic attack, but the top 3 options for slayers are Kraken's Eye for high magic attack percentage, especially when paired with Hand of Chaos, Time Manipulator for M-Pen and Ignore M-Def, especially when paired with Monocle, or Tiber's Hand for high magic attack percentage and 8% Ignore M-Def at plus 15. For accessory enchantment, aim for high int or magic attack stat and anti-mage for 4th enchant. For accessory cards, you can use any of the following cards. For headgears, there's a lot of options available for both gacha and non-gacha. I'll be showing my top 5 recommendations for each slot and just choose depending on which stat you're lacking. For a head, you may use Norma the Unicorn, a high refined white knight helm for MVP, doppelganger bandana, a high refined mad watchmaker hat, and coif. For headwear enchantment, aim for high int and magic attack stats. For headwear cards, you may use any of the following cards. For farming, having a Dark Illusion card will shorten the casting of Dig Vault and thus improve farming efficiency. While for MVP fights, an Orc Hero card will probably be the best in slot since it can negate the 5-second stun effect caused by the power of Lord of Nightmare. For face item, my top 5 recommendations are Winter Crown, Silent Sinking, Juggling Queen for MVP, a high refined monocle, or Epic Spirit Lightning if farming using Dig Vault. Insight 4th enchant is definitely a must for raising your Ignore MDef. For mouth item, you may use Light Food, Cloud Pillow Dream for MVP, Ceremony Spinning Sweet Dream, Starlight Lullaby, or Abyss Whisper. For enchantment, just aim for a high magic attack stat. For back item, the best in slot would be the Wrath Greasy Fallen Feather due to its chance to trigger Lex Eterna. Other good options are Lost Star Track, Neon Light for Ignore MDef, Dark Moonshine for MVP, Ashy Star Flying Feather, or the Ancient One Staff. Getting Insight 4th enchant is a top priority for higher Ignore MDef. And lastly, for the tail item, you may use Peter Wendy, Thunder Sun for MVP, Flying Quarterback, Panel Guardian, or Spirit's Blessing. Getting an Arcane 4th enchant on your tail will be significant in increasing your overall DPS. Lastly, here are some other tips for increasing the power of your Slayer. First, having a pet by your side can help you deal more damage. The most suitable pet for Slayers in RO 2.0 would be the 2-star Jack pet because it has a chance to increase your M-Pen by 10% for 5 seconds upon casting a skill. Its passive also increases your Ignore MDef by 6%. Other pets that can increase your damage are as follows. You also have an option to use pets that can resurrect such as Ubun and Osiris, or pets that can taunt enemies such as Orc Warrior and Orc Baby. Second, make sure that the stats in your Guild Blessing and Guild Prayers are aligned with your build. Prioritize increasing your M-Pen, Ignore MDef, Magic Attack, and Elemental Attack. Third, for Oracle Mirror, you may extract the stats of any of the following: a high refined Stick of Wicked Thought for boosting M-Pen, a high refined Wizardry Staff for increasing Ignore MDef, a high refined Oath Book page 2 for more magic attack, or the Staff of Element Fusion for additional 7% magic AoE skill damage. Or for Ancient Relics, the best purple relic is Elf's Piccolo, which will reduce your variable cast time to 0 so you won't need to invest in Dex and VCT gears. In a future update, it will also reduce fixed cast time by 50%. An alternative is Horn of the Unyielding, which grants HP protection, so the max damage you'll receive is only 50% of your max HP. Options for blue relics are Valkyrie's Blessing for Ignore MDef, or Light Saint Ring for magic attack percentage. And lastly, invest in lots of magic attack, unlock, and deposit rewards in your adventure handbook. You should also invest in these cards and headgears which provide int, dex, magic damage, and Ignore MDef unlock and deposit rewards. Unlocking the following multi-jobs will also provide additional attributes. Alright, so far we've discussed the stats, skills, runes, equipment, cards, and tips to build your Slayer character. I hope this video has helped you in your journey to become a more powerful Slayer. If you're still listening until the end of this video, thank you so much, you guys are the best. Alright, that's it for this video guys. Don't forget to like if you enjoyed watching this guide. If you're new here, I would love you to consider subscribing by hitting the red subscribe button down below. I would love to have you back. Thank you for watching and see you in our next episode.